What's up, everybody? How you doing? Welcome back to the Punk Rock Review podcast. I've got a very, very special guest today. This is Mike McCOLGAN of Street Dogs and formerly Dropkick Murphys. What's up, buddy? How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm happy to be on your podcast and looking forward to talking about the shows, the reissue of our second album, Back to the World, the 20-year anniversary of that, and excited to talk about Michael McCOLGAN and the Bomb Squad too, and performing the Do or Die record. Like, really grateful to be able to get out there and do that.
Well, let's just jump off right there then, because I got to go watch you play in Houston, and it was like I haven't been in a mosh pit in probably 15, 16, 17 years. And as soon as Barroom Hero started, I literally just handed my stuff to my wife. I was like, I'll be right back. And I just took off running. And it was like this really great feeling that I used to get when I was younger. And I appreciate that y'all are doing that. So kind of tell me, like, how'd that all come about and what was the idea behind it?
Well, throughout the years in Street Dogs, folks have talked about what Do or Die meant to them and have asked me to sign the record. Me and Johnny were talking about doing shows to support the 20th anniversary of Back to the World, and then do shows to, the next year we're going to do a few shows to support the re-release of Fading American Dream. So next year that'll be 20 years old. So, Johnny asked me, he said, all throughout the life of the band, people have talked about how much Do or Die means to them. Would you ever be up for honoring that record and performing it? And, I think my first response was yes. I mean, there's so many people I feel like that would make them happy, and the record seems to have a lasting quality to it with different generations. And I want to honor the record, and I'm grateful to have been just merely a part of that with Ken Casey, Rick Barton, and Matt Kelly. That record is the sum of all parts together, and that's how that evolved, and now we're doing shows, and the intentionality behind the shows is just to make people happy, and then I get to play, that record with friends and great musicians. I mean, in Houston, we had Craig Silverman on stage playing with us. I mean, I was pinching myself the whole time. I mean, that's a guy that has played in a lot of Boston legendary hardcore bands and plays an Agnostic Front now. So, I mean, that was, a big deal to me.
Dude, yeah, that lineup was nuts, man. Shout out Johnny Rio. That dude's awesome. Yeah, I mean, Do or Die is one of the early, like, oi street punk records that, like, from that, like, specific subgenre of punk rock that I got into without realizing that it was something a little different than, say, like the, mohawk clad spiky jacket stuff. Lyrically, it spoke to me, and it continues to speak to me. As I get older, that kind of stuff really is more what I have been enjoying over the past probably 10 years. But yeah, it's a very, very important record. How did you guys come about? How did I don't know a lot about the history of Dropkick Murphys' early stuff. How did that band come about?
I think myself and Kenny, we went to a significant amount of punk rock shows together, and we went and we're always buying punk rock records. And I can remember in the mid to late 90s, we seen the Swingin' Utters playing shows on supporting Streets of San Francisco album, which is a brilliant street punk album. If no one's ever heard that, I highly recommend that they go buy that. Like, don't even listen to the rest of this interview, just go buy it. But we seen the Swingin' Utters playing back then, and I remember us walking out of a show in the Wetlands in Manhattan, and we both looked at each other and we got to start a band. And that was the impetus to start. And, fortunately, Kenny knew Rick and Rick Barton, and we started playing with him. And then we had Jeff Erna was our original drummer, and then Matt Kelly replaced Jeff eventually. And when we recorded Do or Die, it was, myself, Kenny, Rick, and Matt.
Dude, that's awesome. It's funny. Excuse me. The last probably year and a half, I've had a fair number of people like cite Swingin' Utters as instrumental to them either creating an album or starting a band. And while I love Swingin' Utters and have for most of my life, I didn't realize that they were that influential. Which, I guess if you look at when they started playing, it's kind of makes sense. They were around a little bit before some of the bands that I was listening to when I was a teenager. But that's awesome, man. I really appreciate the history on that stuff. Street Dogs is a band that I saw like a lot whenever you guys were kind of like hanging out in Texas a lot. And I got to know Johnny. I lived down the street from Toby for a while. I met you a few times, and then my buddy Pete ended up playing drums with you guys for a bit. So I was just seeing you guys play. So it's a band that's very important to me. A couple of the albums hitting 20 years. I'll be covering those albums on the channel just as their anniversaries come along. It's kind of how I choose what albums to pick. Otherwise, I'd just be kind of constantly stressing out of what to do. But those are very important records to me. You guys are going to be playing Punk Rock Bowling.
Correct.
To my knowledge, have y'all not been playing at all in quite some time?
Yeah, I think we hadn't. I mean, we played this past summer at No Effects' Farewell, and then we played a sold out show at the Middle East, and we did the Do or Die. We performed Do or Die in Houston. That was like a wonderful time and so much fun. And again, like I said earlier, like getting to talk to people and like listen and take in just how much it means to them. And then there's that connection. I think in the past, I said it on stage in Houston too. Like I used to take that stuff for granted. I don't think I was as present or as much as an active, like compassionate listener as I should have been. And now I don't take any moment for granted, and I just try to be present, and I have a lot of gratitude to anyone that will stop and, let myself or other people in the group know what the music means to them.
That's amazing, man. Yeah, I obviously don't have near the impact, but I love being able to soak in things. It's something that comes with age. When I was in my 20s, I just kind of did what I did, and I didn't really think about anything. Honestly, I appreciated the albums that I had, but I wasn't even the albums I didn't appreciate as much as I do now. But kind of just being around the people for as long as I have been is pretty awesome. So how'd you guys decide to start playing? I mean, Punk Rock Bowling, is that something that was just asked of you guys, or did you? How's that work? It's my first year going, so I'm new to that whole experience.
We've played it in the past, and I think when we played this past summer, we started to get offers to play other shows. And Punk Rock Bowling's always been a special festival for us, and we've been fortunate enough. We've been fortunate enough to have played on the main stage there and play club shows and play with alongside some unbelievable bands. And to the lineup this year it's unreal. I mean, on the main stage, and then the club shows the lineup of the club shows is just incredible. So I think the Stern brothers do a really good job putting together lineups. That's something that they've been very, very good at, and we're just grateful to have been, invited to play, and we're looking forward to it. I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I'm just starting to get out of Texas, at this point in my life, and I'm the club shows, man. I was like freaking out. I'm going to be able to see you play twice that weekend. I'm very excited about that. Back to the World, was that y'all's first record?
No, Savin Hill.
Savin Hill was the first record.
First Street Dogs record in 2003, and then Back to the World came out in around 2005.
Yes, okay. Because I remember listening to all three of those actually quite a bit. Savin Hill, yeah, man. I remember the first time I heard those, I was on a Metro bus in Houston. I had a little portable CD player, and I was listening to, I don't remember how I got it, but I got it and I was listening to it. It was probably just purchased at a record store. I just remember really enjoying that music. So what got you wanting to play with another band back in the early 2000s and starting Street Dogs? Was there something that was specific, or did you just have the bug and you wanted to play music still?
Well, I'm on the Boston Fire Department at the time, and I'm back working with the department. I get a phone call from Jeff Erner, and like I'd mentioned, I think I'd mentioned maybe before the pod. No, actually, I mentioned that during the podcast previously. That Jeff Erner was the original drummer for Dropkicks before Matt came in, and get a call around 2002. From Jeff Erner, and he's like, "Hey, a buddy of ours, Rob Godotti, has some songs, and we've been messing around with them. And he keeps bringing your name up to sing on them. Would you be interested in just singing on a couple of these songs?" I was like, "Yeah, I could do that." I was like, "No harm, no foul." And we start working on the songs, and then we have Michelle Paulus come in, who was in a band called The Dents from Boston, and she was playing bass originally, and we did a demo. I believe, if memory serves me right, I think it was about a 5-song demo, and that started to circulate, and then we got an offer to do a record offer from Crosscheck Records, and that's how Savin Hill got made. And Michelle around that time left. She was in a band called the Down B5 and the Dents. Down B5 were doing really well at the time. So I figured, well, why don't we have Johnny Rio come on board and play bass? And then when he came into it, it took on a whole another life. He brought a lot of ideas and vision and really steered the ship. And that really helped when we made Savin Hill. Rob had a number of really good songs, and then Johnny had great songs too. I had a couple, and Savin Hill was a special time making that record. It was just, we were just having fun playing music, and then that morphed into a record deal, and another record deal for Back to the World with DRT Records at the time. So yeah, I'm grateful that I get to do this period. It's such a privilege to get to do this. I'm not entitled to it. It's not a right. I'm very, very, very grateful that I've had the opportunity to sing, to write lyrics, and then to sing alongside such great musicians, and God rest his soul. Rob Godotti was a great guitar player, a great songwriter, and he's missed. And Savin Hill it's a special record. It's got a special energy to it.
It does. It's a fantastic album. There's a wealth of great music in the, I don't know, 2000 to 2010. There was just so many great records. What was it like putting out? I mean, within a few years, you had 3 records that I personally consider classic albums. And then you're doing the re-release of Back to the World for its 20th anniversary. Did you say you were doing another release of Fading American Dream?
Yeah, and next year we're gonna re-release Fading American Dream on vinyl.
Oh, thank you. That is incredibly hard to find.
And we'll do a few shows in support of that. And I mean, when I look at the span of time that Savin Hill, Back to the World, Fading American Dream were recorded, and that's in a 3-year span, 3 records were made. I mean, blows my mind. It really does. We were really moving along and chugging along at that time. And, looking back in retrospect, I feel, in a grounded way that those records stand up, and that they still resonate with people, and people seem excited that we're re-releasing, Back to the World this year, and the following year we'll do Fade American Dream, and I think all of our records will eventually get re-released on vinyl and remastered and things of the like.
I'm excited about that. Fading American Dream is one that I've wanted in my collection for a long time, and I would love to have it at my little shop. But yeah, that's amazing. So, around what age did you start listening to punk rock? Was there a specific thing that got you interested in it? Did you just kind of stumble upon it? What was your first show?
Well,
Do you remember?
I think I remember when I was in 7th grade, and at the time, I'm listening to pop and R&B and some heavy metal, and I went over my friend Danny's house, and he put in the Clash's first album. And when I heard the opening of the Clash City Rockers, the first track, I knew intuitively, deep down, and it gives me goosebumps just thinking about it now. I knew my life would never be the same at that moment. And I don't think I've ever really touched in with that feeling or expressed that feeling in an interview or to many people. And then the rest of the album, which just, here I am in junior high Catholic school and not really feeling, the authoritarian slant of the priests and nuns at the Catholic school, and along comes the first Clash album, and then something inside me just said, "These guys get it. They get it. They're singing about the deck being stacked against us. They're singing about question the answers." And I was just like, okay, like I can put the pop and the metal and the R&B off to the side for a while now, and that was the first real visceral, tangible moment where I was like, wow, this is what I want to be listening to and getting into. And then I think I remember seeing this band from, God, I think I was maybe 14 years old. This band, they're not from England, but they're from Wales. This band, The Alarm. And, they're playing the song The Stand. And it was a punk rock type of like anthem, like some salvo, like saying stand up. And that was one of the first shows I went to. And I can remember going to like more shows later on when Dropkicks formed up, seeing bands like the Bruises, the Ducky Boys, Pinkin' and Thugs, Showcase Showdown, All Systems Stop, The Unseen. And at that time, the early to mid 90s to late 90s, that music was at the epicenter of music itself. And it's an amazing time. And yeah, I would say that the Clash really set it off for me. Even bands like The Alarm. Even I remember hearing like maybe the one punkish album by U2 War, hearing Sunday Bloody Sunday, and hearing like a song or The Refugee and being like, this is what I want to tap into. Then getting introduced to Stiff Little Fingers and finding something from Ireland that was a little bit more incendiary and a little bit more rebel music and a little bit more like, we need to stand up and we need to let our voices be heard. And I think whether we like it or not in Street Dogs, I think our music is very similar, or is inspired, I would say, is maybe the more appropriate way to say it, by Stiff Little Fingers.
Oh, I could hear that.
And I feel like they're probably the most criminally underrated band in musical history. You can hear it all over Green Day's music too, and I'm a huge Green Day fan. I actually took my son Liam this past summer to see them at Fenway with Rancid, the Smashing Pumpkins, and the Linda Lindas. The Linda Lindas were great.
Yes, they were.
Another great band to check out. And Rancid, as always, was phenomenal. The Smashing Pumpkins were okay. Green Day was just played American Idiot and Dookie back to back without a break. Flawlessly.
Dude, people give them a lot of crap. And look, you're entitled to feel however you want about Green Day. But I really appreciate the fact that you can say that, because I'm of the older I get, the less I give a crap what anybody thinks. So I'm just like, nah, dude, like they're just a great rock and roll band. Call them whatever you want, put them whatever little subgenre you want. But that show, I was planning on watching Rancid and then jetting, because I took my whole family because they wanted to see Rancid. And I was like, well, we got to see some of Green Day. They're playing Dookie first. I grew up on that record. I kind of want to watch that, at least that. Man, we almost watched the entire set. I got a son on the spectrum. He was having like an overload, man. He just couldn't, so we had to jet a little early. But like, I was flabbergasted at A, how much energy they had, and B, how much I enjoyed it. It was a fantastic show. But
yeah, and they're very good to their fans, and
yes,
they try as hard as it seems to be from the outside looking in to make that big stadium show as intimate as they can. And that's one of the best stadium shows I've ever seen like that. The last tour that they came through on was incredible.
I don't see very many shows of that stature, and that was a very unique experience for me. I enjoyed it quite a bit. You mentioned that when you heard the Clash, something changed. I think we all kind of have that spark. That's the one thing that there's a line through every one of us that's within this umbrella that we hear, whatever it is that you hear that does that thing where it just snaps you, man. I remember that feeling very well, where I thought, oh, this is what I was supposed to be listening to the whole time. I had no idea. I was 14 years old and saw Rancid play, and I was a fan of Metallica. I went and saw them at like a Lollapalooza. Thought that I was there for Metallica. I saw Rancid, and it changed my whole life. The shirt is still hanging up in my closet. Like, still have it. It's an incredible feeling. I was attached to your music because, when I was a young kid or, young adult, Dropkick Murphys first. And then when I heard about Street Dogs, I was instantly attracted to that because you were singing with them, because my whole family's Irish, but I'm down here in Houston. And so that was like a connection. I felt represented in a way that I hadn't before. I didn't know there was a different kind of subgenre going on. Like, I didn't realize that there was other kinds of punk. I mean, I've got an Agnostic Front tattoo. I had no idea they were a hardcore band until I was in my mid-20s. Like, I didn't know. Like, to me, it was just all punk, That's amazing. What brought you guys down to Houston? Y'all were down here a lot.
So Johnny, Houston is home for Johnny, and Johnny has recording studios down there. So we did a lot of pre-production work on, I think, Fate and American Dream, State of Grace, self-titled, even Stand for Something down there. And, that would be where we would have songs demoed and worked up. So when we did go into the studio, they were ready to track. And we even did like the side project FM 359 down there. We recorded that record down there. So yeah, I mean, I feel like we did a lot of pre-production work there, and I don't think that Johnny gets enough credit for his ability to produce music and in his creative vision. Not just with Street Dogs, but I've seen him work with like Flatfoot 56, for example.
Oh yeah.
And the record that I think the single off, I don't remember the name of the album, but there was a song Courage. And it was the big song from that record from Flatfoot, and Johnny had worked on that. And I remember hearing that and being like, whoa, it's really, really good. So, the band had a lot of faith in letting him quarterback the pre-production, when we made records. Even like two of our best records, the self-titled record and the last record to date, Stand for Something, Die for Nothing, Johnny was a producer on. Well, on the self-titled, it was him and Rick Barton. And we did that up at the Boston Room, and Jason Livermore was the engineer. But when we worked on Stand for Something, Die for Nothing, Johnny was the producer and did a bang-up job. He did a great job.
He's an excellent musician, very nice person too. I like talking to Johnny.
Yeah, he is. He's a very kind person, and love that guy. He's like a brother to me.
So, out of all your records with Street Dog specifically, is there one that kind of sticks out to you as the most sentimental? I don't want to say like necessarily the most important, but like maybe just kind of like your personal favorite. Maybe one you like playing the best, or you like the lyrics you wrote the best. Is there one that sticks out to you?
It's a difficult question.
Yeah, it kind of is.
Very, very difficult question because there's so many different moments that kind of fall under that umbrella. Sentimental, I would say, like a song like Free from State of Grace kind of taps into the struggles of life and the trials and the tribulations and the refuge of music, like the refuge of songwriting or singing or performing. The song Free taps into that. And even songs like Two Angry Kids taps into that too. It taps into friendship and the past and gets into the beginning of my involvement in music. So the sentimental songs that really kind of like bring me back or maybe make me more present in the moment. Well, I'd say in the moment would be Free. The sentimental one that pulls at the heartstrings of songs like Two Angry Kids and Free. So even like General's Boombox on that record, I feel like is an underrated track where we're talking about our love for Joe Strummer and his trajectory and his path and even some of his difficulties. That when we perform that song, that we always seem to like put a little extra mustard on that or elevate because we feel so strongly about it.
Yeah, that is a person that is woven very deeply within the fabric of punk rock. That I'll be honest, until my later years, I didn't have the appreciation I should have had for him. When I first discovered the Clash's music, I was introduced with the very wrong albums, and I just didn't get it. So, but yeah, it's interesting that there's these names that pop up every time I talk to somebody. There's a handful of names that just continuously pop up. Lately, it's been Swinging Utters a lot, but it's always Joe Strummer's always the one. Like his name comes up more often than anything. Whenever you stopped playing with Dropkick Murphys, I don't need to necessarily get into like why or anything. I think you were just working with the fire department, if I remember correctly. And then you started playing with Street Dogs again. How was that? Was there like some anxious feelings going into your first few shows? I can only imagine what that was like, knowing what you were already known for, and then coming with a new band. How'd that go? Were the first shows, were they successful? Were they good, or was there a disaster?
I think I wasn't really preoccupied with any anxious feelings about it at the time. I guess one of the things that sticks out in my mind when we were in Jeff's basement and the song Savin Hill came together, you could just feel something in the room, an energy, a connection with everybody, that everybody's just playing and everybody's looking at each other and everybody just knows there's something good going on. It's like another form of communicating. It's another language. And that type of energy carried us into some of those first shows. Even songs like Stand Up that Rob brought in. And then later we had like Ken Casey and Al Barr elevate the track by singing on it. Those were some of the earliest songs, and in some of those initial shows, like those were the songs that people were like bobbing their head to, or like you could just see like, yeah, they were into it. And those shows were fun.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I can only imagine. Was Savin Hill one of the earlier songs that you guys wrote as a band?
Yeah.
That one feels like an early song. Like if you're getting together with a group of people, like, hey, let's write some music, and you want something a little more upbeat, like let's put something with some grit into it. That song's fantastic. I was actually going to ask, what are some of the songs that get the crowd moving the most when you're playing live? Is there a particular couple that really just get people freaking out, piling up on the stage?
It seems this like songs like Punk Rock and Roll, where it's more of a song about blowing off steam and the school week's over or the work week's over and it's the weekend time. I remember when me and Rick Barton was sitting down and we were messing with it. Rick said, Rick's hilarious. He said, this isn't going to be a song about another one of your uncles or a Union song. And I laughed so loud when he said that. And we were like, yeah, let's just write a song about blowing off steam and being out with your friends, seeing a great band, and how that feels like when you're with a bunch of folks and you're at a show and everybody's just having a good time, and there's that unspoken language of love for the music and the time and the gratitude for those times. And that's a song that seems to get people moving. And then songs like Not Without a Purpose, Not Without a Fight from Fading American Dream is another one of those songs. Back to the World as well, because, you know, Back to the World sort of like some lamentation about your lot as a soldier. You've taken an oath to be a part of defending America, and that's very complex and difficult, and there's so much that goes in and out of that. So I was trying to capture that in that song. So many people have served who have been fans of the group have said thank you for trying to touch into that. And then that feeling of, well, I'm almost like getting discharged and I'm going to go back to the world. I'm going to go back home and be with my family, be with my partner. And just really, that's a song that seems to, like, no matter where we play it, immediately there's a pretty charged response to it.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. Not Without a Purpose is also one of those ones. I forgot about that song. You mentioned it, and I was like, that's one I remember very distinctly being up by the front of the stage and singing it with the band. That's a fan. I mean, there's so many. Man, you've got a very deep discography of songs, man. Like a lot of real. I appreciate when there's a band that you'll get a band. I'm not gonna name names or anything, but like you'll get a band and you'll get an album, and you're like, oh, it's 11 songs. And let's say there's even like 7 pretty good songs in there. And there's a few you're like, and maybe 1 or 2 of those are like fantastic tracks. There's a lot of bands like that. And there's nothing wrong with that or whatever. I mean, who knows? I may be wrong. That may be an album full of songs people like, but I like it when I can get records and it's just the whole record's good. Like I like the whole thing. And it's one of the things I enjoyed about all the stuff you have put out is that it's typically things I can just throw on, listen to the entire album front to back. There's a lot of topical stuff. Hell, you can learn stuff listening to your songs. I'm down here in Texas, man. I've never gone anywhere, so you get to hear a lot of stuff. I've done a lot of, looking up things, topics, phrases, not just from Street Dogs or Dropkick Murphys, other bands too, but from the Northeast. That you can. There's all kinds of things you can do with the music. what are your plans for the near future? Are you gonna write a new album? Are you gonna try to put something out? Do you want to do a full tour? Or
I think the days of full tours are over. You know, Johnny has work. I have work. Everybody in the group has a job. I think we'll play shows, you know, periodically. I think one of the things that I wanted to do, even if it was a couple songs or an EP, is there's always been a producer. He's actually worked with Hot Water Music before, Brian McTernan. I'm a huge fan of Hot Water Music, and I really love their sound. I mean, they're very talented musicians and great, you know, Chris and Chuck are great singers. And like Caution by Hot Water Music, to me, is such a phenomenal record. And even Vows is their latest, is great. And I just dig that production sound from Brian McTernan. And we were actually going to use him for Fading American Dream, but he was busy with something else, and we wound up going with Ted Hutt. It was phenomenal, and we were really, really fortunate to get Ted as a producer. We had heard the Bouncing Souls Gold record that he just completed, and we'd heard the great records he had done with Flogging Molly, and you know, and he's gone on to do great records with Dropkick Murphys too, and other bands, you know, Old Crow, Medicine Show, Gaslight Anthem. The list goes on. Ted's done, you know, incredible, phenomenal work. He's a great, great musician, great songwriter, and he knows how to pull so much out of you when it's time to track and perform. But working with Brian McTernan would be great. I kind of like to stay right sized and modest about it, and say, you know, an EP would be more apropos or appropriate, particularly given the short attention span of folks these days. I mean, that's something that may happen. It may not.
Sure.
I mean, I'm 54 years old now. I don't see myself running around on stage when I'm 60, to be quite honest. I see myself doing this for a couple more years, and that's that. But music's funny,
right?
Sometimes when you think you're done with it, you're not. So I keep that door open and have that spaciousness with it. There's just some thoughts that are coming off the top of my head now. And I think also, like, something that's really important in my life too is a Dharma practice in Buddhism, something that I've been doing, I think, closing in on 5.5, maybe 6 years. And that's something that I like to have time for in my life, going on retreats, being able to teach mindfulness, and try to stay right size with a beginner's mind and teachable. So that's something that I like to have time for in my life. That's something that I feel is a skillful means for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's bittersweet to hear those words, but it also makes sense. I mean, you know, as we get older, our priorities change, and sometimes you meet the goals you were trying to achieve. You get those. Sometimes you're able to. It's got to be tough to be able to look at that and go, yeah, I think I'm done. Like with anything, it could be whatever your choice of career is, but I can only imagine how tough that is.
Well, I think it's important to, and then, you know, Dharma informs on this too, like being able to skillfully let go when it's time to let go. And like I said earlier on, like, I think now, because of practice, I'm way more grateful for every song I've gotten to sing, every show I've gotten to play, and just very, very fortunate. and just having the attitude of gratitude is something I try to like cultivate as much as I can around it.
Right. It's funny how we look at things when we're in our 20s and then we look at them different when we're in our 40s and 50s. It's I mean, it literally is like the opposite. When you're 22 years old, you're like, man, I got all the time in the world. I'm going to do whatever I want. Hell, I don't have to do anything this year because I could do it next year. And you hit 45, and you're like, gotta get on the ball here. Got things I want to accomplish. And priorities change and desires shift.
Yeah, and recently it was February 8th. My mom passed away, and fortunately I got to be by her side with my brother, my godmother, my son, my cousins, and I got to express my gratitude to her for all the wonderful things she did on our behalf for me and my brother, my father. My father passed away in 2011, and it's when you can be present for things of that magnitude, and then you realize how transient and impermanent and fleeting and in flux life is. It kind of just by default makes you realize what's of importance, and I feel like presence is important. Like I have my son, like being in his life, being active in his life, being present, being an active listener, like staying right size and teachable around that too, and having a beginner's mind and wanting to stay teachable. And I'm just really grateful that I can see where I'm at and know be able to like know the value of being there for my family. And I think that if we do dabble in a couple new songs, I feel like that stuff like that will find its way in, and then being engaged in the Dharma practice will find its way in too. So those are some of the things that I feel like would make their way into something new. And we have like Reese Williams, who used to play with Roger Moret and the Disasters, playing guitar for us, and he's just chomping at the bit to do some new songs. And his energy is really kind of moving us and inspiring us. So we'll see what happens. Just have an open mind around it and just see what comes.
Yeah, I mean, if it's organic, it'll likely be very good. I would imagine. If it's forced, you can tell when people force things like that.
Absolutely, 100%. It's gotta. That's very astute and well stated, and I feel like looking back on the Street Dog songs that were organic and had a good energy, and the room just started working around it.
Yeah, it's interesting. You've been on my mind the last couple of weeks. No need to elaborate as to why, but I was talking to my friend Chris yesterday, and we were just discussing like a record that we're working on right now. And I said, "Yeah, dude, man, life is crazy right now." And he goes, "Life is short." And I mean, just the way he said that, and I was just thinking, like, yeah, I just celebrated another year. I turned 43 a couple of days ago, and I'm like, I mean, I blinked and I went, "Thank you, thank you." Yeah, I mean, but I blinked and my kid's almost 12, and I got a whole family, and it's just, yeah, if you don't appreciate it, man, it'll just fly right through your fingers, and you'll wish you had. It's an interesting thing to know as I get older. I didn't used to feel this way or think this way, but yeah, I can imagine what I'll be thinking in another 10 years.
Yeah, and I mean, you talk about time going by quickly and everything constantly changing. I think over the last 5.5 years, it's really made me want to cultivate and work on as much as I can, a moment at a time, being kind to people, because that hasn't always been the case for me. There's been plenty of times in the past where I've been self-serving and selfish, and I really feel like practicing meditation and Dharma has really made me more compassionate and more inclined to be kind to everybody as much as I can. And I was really like going back to my mom passing, I felt really grateful to be able to be there and just let her know like what she meant to me. And then even with the wake, the funeral mass, the internment, just reconnecting with family. And then I feel like there's a new energy to let people know what they mean to you. Like if you have something positive to say or affectionate towards family or friends, or now's the time, not further on down the line. So just trying to have beginner's mind around all that and just try to be as kind as I can be.
That's a incredibly wise way to live. So you're playing punk rock bowling. You think that there is a possibility of some new material maybe in the works. What are some of the, I don't know how to word this. What are some things that you're interested in right now within punk rock? Are there any bands that you listen to? Are there any things that you'd like to do
Homefront is so
hell
good.
yes.
I got turned on to them by my buddy Sean, and I mean Liberty and Justice are great. Conservative Military Image are excellent. Violent Way are really good. Skinhead, Haywire, like there's a new. Well, it's not exactly new. There's just the current wave of street punk, and Oi is more progressive and more willing to bring different instrumentation and electronics into it. And that, to me, I was always the guy in Street Dogs that was pushing to be a little bit more open-minded about instrumentation or bringing something in to rap in a bridge on a song like we had Swain do, like on Angels Calling during the recording of Stand for Something, Die for Nothing. It's really exciting to hear this wave of bands broadening the sound of street punk and Oi. I heard somebody say that soft Oi is a subgenre within Oi, and I don't like to, even though I just did it, I don't like to kind of label genres and things like that. Like a lot of these bands are just playing good music, and then the message and the lyrics are powerful and resonating, particularly with Homefront. Really, really good stuff.
That band's amazing. I got to see them play a few months back, and I was like, boy, that guy gets you wanting to move around. My goodness. Like,
yeah,
his name is Graham. Very, very good frontman. Yeah, the new crop of Oi bands is honestly it's kind of amazing. I come from more of a like street punk background, but as I said earlier, the older I get, the more Oi music has been stuff that I gravitate towards, and the new crop of bands is really good. Slugger, Bullshit Detector, like you said, Liberty and Justice. I mean, there's Violent Way. There's tons of them, and I like it when there's like I don't mind that there's bands that fall strictly under like an Oi sound, but I really like it when the waters are muddy and you're like, I don't really know. There's kind of like this and this, and I think that soft Oi stuff you were talking about might be what I've been hearing cold Oi term floated around, which is like the post punk mixed with Oi, and there's so much great stuff happening right now. It's so good. There's a lot of fantastic bands coming out right now.
Another good band from England is High Vis.
Yes, High Vis is also good.
Got to see them but and I was just absolutely blown away by their live performance. And their songs are so good.
So I've never got to see. This is a older band, but I've never been able to see Cockspire live.
Oh, you got to
That-
do that.
Well, that's
So
the whole reason I'm going to punk rock bowling was for that. I was like, I don't care how much money I have to spend. I want to go see that. And then I ended up having some fortune fall my way. I get to go see them. I'm very very grateful. But yeah,
yeah,
I'm excited for that one.
it's a communal sing along every time they play. We've been fortunate enough to have played with them in the past, and they're such good human beings, and the songs and lyrics, and it's timeless, and it just gets better with time. The more you listen to it, it's one of those rare types of bands that, like take Shock Troops for example. Each time I listen to any one of the songs on that, and they're all great from top to bottom, it just gets better. You can't say that about everything. You really can't.
No,
And then
yes,
I think, Randall, like when you see them at Punk Rock Ball, and you'll be blown away. There's nothing
yeah,
like there really isn't.
I'm very very excited. I even I was talking about punk rock bowling a couple weeks back, and I took my 10-year-old daughter to go bowling, to actual go bowling, and I was like, hey, I get to go see this band play in Vegas in May. You want to hear them? And she's like, yeah. And she's a typical 10-year-old, so she likes kind of stuff that dad likes, but she also likes whatever she's into. And I played like, I don't know, 3/4 of Shock Troops on our way to the place, and she's like air drumming the whole way. And I was like, hey, you like this? And she's like, I like his voice. And I was like, dude, you're awesome, kid, man. This is so rad. And I hope she sticks with some of this music, man. It's like you said, every time I listen to it, I feel good.
I get that with my sons with the Ramones. He loves the Ramones, and I don't want to be abrupt, but I do have to get going because I have to take
no worries.
on the Taekwondo. I'm looking at the time, and he's got to be there in like 10 minutes.
No, perfect, dude. We'll get you out of here, man. Thank you so much. It was an honor and a pleasure.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll see you in May in Vegas.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you, and thanks for having me on. I'm grateful to be able to speak with you and just share my experience as it pertains to the music and I guess life in general as well. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate it. Have a good day, man. See you later,
All right,
Mike.
take care, Randall.
All right, later, bud. What's up, guys? So we just partnered up with Dead and Buried Inc. out of LA. So if you have a band or a small business, maybe an event coming up and you need merch, hit these dudes up. There's a link in the description. If you mention that you got there via the Punk Rock Review, you'll get 10% off of your first order. But it's super high quality screen printing, embroidery. They do shirts, hats, hoodies, skateboards, bags, whatever you want printed, they can handle it, all right? They're also a small business, and they're part of the punk rock community. They're my friends. So this is a partnership that's very important to me. If you need merch, hit these dudes up, check them out. You won't be disappointed, all right? Back to the video.